We love a good brag, a good success story. We pedestal the ideas of abundance and overflow. But I've honestly actually found scarcity to be much more instrumental in getting us what we want and developing us into our potential. And that is what I want to look at in today's Cosmic Coin Drop. First, let me set scope here with what I'm talking about because on this spectrum of abundance versus scarcity, I'm, yes, looking at money, the actual resources that afford us the ability to purchase the things, the lifestyle that we want. But I'm also looking at time and I'm looking at energy. So, time, money, and energy. And I consider these the most basic raw material resources that we have to work with. And the idea here is that when you have unlimited money, unlimited time, unlimited energy, you're not actually able to do the magical, mindful thing that comes with being intentional and strategic with the allocation of said raw resources. I'll give you example first of energy. Think of a kid that has unlimited energy. Sometimes as adults, we frame this as the fucks we have to give and how that shifts from unlimited when we're a child toward getting progressively more limited and precious as we get older. And so getting older is also a path of getting more discerning around your priorities and what is actually essential to apply said fucks to. Because if you look at a kid that has unlimited fucks to give, AKA unlimited energy, they have no reason to be mindful or intentional around deciding where to apply their energy. It's basically unlimited. So they can just apply it wherever they think to go. And they're like little energizer bunnies until they drop. There's not a consideration of like, whoa, I feel winded. Let me, take some time to recover. At least not my 3-year-old. Okay. Then let's look at time. I have the example of before I became a mom and a wife, when I was a solo business owner, tax preparer living in a studio. The days, the nights, the hours, everything bled together. There was no need for work-life balance, especially during COVID, in an environment where I just did all the same things in the same place. I was such a homebody. And looking back, a lot of mothers have this experience looking back on their maiden years. It's like, I had so much time then. What did I even do with it? I was not nearly as productive then when I had infinite amounts of time to do with as I please, no one else to be responsible for, nothing but me and my whims. And I didn't get nearly as much done as I do now that my life is such that I have very contained pockets of time to crush it inside of for my business. Then let's present the money conversation. I worked with a client who came to me because things were shifting in her financial world such that she had been infinitely provided for financially previously, and now was transitioning into that source being cut off and her needing to make her own money, which was such a big full spectrum psychological rite of passage shift with her relationship with her money, because once it became finite, she actually had to make decisions around that something was more important to her than something else. She had to, for the first time, consider what her priorities actually were. If she didn't have all the money in the world to throw at anything and everything whenever she felt like it. She actually had to start looking in the mirror and checking in with herself in a beautiful way that she hadn't before around what really mattered to her to spend money on if she had a limited amount of it. And now let's fully transition back through the same direction that we did in the beginning. Energy. We talked about the difference between a kid with unlimited energy that just has troves of it to point wherever and whenever until they drop. As we get older, we do not have unlimited energy, and we have to make decisions around what we are going to take on and commit to based on knowing that we have limited energetic bandwidth. And often a lesson of maturity is experiencing the reality that when you spread yourself too thin with limited energy, nothing really gets enough of you to be able to show up well for. And so you start to do the beautiful work of clarifying within yourself and communicating with others and structuring your life around the ongoing fluctuations of what truly matters to you, of what is important enough to reserve some of your limited energy to apply to. Then the time conversation. I mentioned that when I was a maiden single homebody living in a studio, by the standard of my life now, I was lazy AF. Now it's all relative compared to others or other times of my life. I was very productive and successful. But looking back now, I did not maximize or leverage the time that I had, the essentially unlimited time that I had besides sleeping, anywhere near the way that I do now. And I actually get more work done now in the limited time I have. You end up getting so much more efficient with it. You strip away the non-essentials and start focusing more of your time that's available to you for your business on things that are actually going to move the needle forward. You become more focused to take advantage of the limited time that is available to you. And so you essentially warp time. You're able to just get so much more done and so much more quality work done inside of limited containers of it. I remember back in those single studio days, I actually had the fantasies based on this sense of like, maybe I should just go work at a cafe part-time. Not because I needed the money, but because I craved something to break up my days so that I actually had chunks of time to leverage and maximize my productivity inside of, instead of just feeling like it was this endless expanse to fill. And then, of course, with money, the main thing that we think of with the words abundance or scarcity. And I'm telling you, the growth that happened for this client when she was half forced, half honestly called in the shift, whereby she was now having to work with a finite amount of money that was much less than what she was used to in her relatively infinite income stream chapter before that. What it brought out of her, her awareness of what was important to her, is the reason that she decided to do cosmic currency, because for the first time ever, she actually needed to manage her money. And this is where I say that scarcity is such a beautiful thing, because if money wasn't limited, AKA scarce, we wouldn't have to steward it. We wouldn't have to be mindful of the decisions we make and the priorities that we double down on and the investments that we choose to allocate portions of our revenue toward. That's the game. And that game is not available to you if you have more money than you know what to do with. And this is why how good you are with money really has nothing to do with how much of it you have. It has more to do with what you do with what you've got. And that is a skill and an orientation and a commitment that adjusts as your revenue does. It's a relationship that you cultivate in sickness and in health, right? Regardless of where you're at financially, you have a similar, grounded, stable, centered way that you show up for it. And the maturity, the capacity, the impressive way that you are able to develop your stewardship for your currency is made possible thanks to its scarcity, thanks to the fact that it's limited, that you have a limited amount that you need to decide what to do with. And that is why I find scarcity such a beautiful thing, because in the example of every one of these three realms of raw resource, it doesn't bring out the best in us to have unlimited amounts. In fact, quite the opposite. And we're not able to develop the relationship with them that intentionally leverages them to create the life that we want if we have unlimited amounts of them. It is the finite scarcity of time, money, and energy that makes it possible for us to play the game of knowing and moving toward what we want and the life we want to create. So remember this next time you're being hard on yourself for not having the kind of abundance in your life that you want. Consider that your version of scarcity is probably perfectly primed to support you to develop exactly where you need to be right now. That's it. That's my hot take. I love scarcity.